The building erupted. Sirens screaming through the halls, lights flashing, doors opening, voices rising. Byun turned and slammed his fist against Lea's door. "Lea, open the door. We have to evacuate." No answer. There. She was there, curled into herself, eyes wide, frozen. "Lea," he called gently. She didn't move. He lowered himself to the floor and slid closer, pushing himself halfway under the bed with her. Days had passed, and a routine formed without words. Every night she was there, grateful, quiet, respectful. And at first, it was unusual. Then, expected. He leaves leftovers in the fridge for her, labeled with sticky notes. "Eat this. Don't let this go bad. Too much salt." He keeps the apartment tidier, opens the window for fresh air, not for himself, because she was there. One night when he returned home, the apartment smelled like ginger and garlic. Leah's sitting at the table, setting it. Then she freezes as he comes in. "Oh, I cooked. I hope that's okay. I used what you had." He stares, stunned. They sit across from each other. Dinner is quiet, but warm. She tells him that she once worked for a cafe. He tells her that he used to play in clubs before life grew heavy. She laughs softly. He almost smiles. She notices his bandage on his hand, but she doesn't ask about it. He appreciates that. They wash dishes together, calm, gentle, easy. For the first time in years, something opens up inside of him. And then it happened suddenly. It was 2 a.m. when the pain spiked violently. A burning pulse races through his feet, legs, his joints, hands. He wakes choking on his breath, stands gripping the wall. The world tilts. He begins pacing, slow, dragging steps, trying to walk down the pain. The apartment is dark except for the light under the bedroom door. He doesn't want to wake her, but the door opens. Lea steps out, sleepy-eyed. Her face changes instantly when she sees him hunched over. Byun? He straightens quickly, swallowing a groan. It's nothing. Go back to sleep." She steps closer. He steps back. Pain shoots through his foot, sharp enough to buckle him. Her eyes widen. You're hurting." I said it's nothing," he said. He waves her off with his bandaged hand, not angry at her, but desperate not to be seen like that. "Byun, please," she says. He can't handle the softness in her voice. He steps towards the bathroom and slams the door. Just let me handle it." The click echoes. Lea stands in the hallway, motionless, heart twisting as she hears him trying to muffle a cry on the other side. She presses her hand to her mouth. Now she knows. Something is deeply, painfully wrong. And he was trying to carry it alone. The bathroom door stayed closed. Lea stands in the hallway listening. At first, there's nothing. Then a sharp inhale, cut short. Her chest tightens. She steps closer and knocks lightly. "Byun?" No answer. Another breath from inside, uneven. She rests her hand against the door. You don't have to do this alone," she says. A long pause. Then a lock turns. The door opens just enough for her to see him inside. One hand braced against the sink, shoulders tight, breathing uncontrolled. "It's fine," he said. It isn't as bad as it looks," he says. She doesn't argue. She just steps inside. "Sit," she says. He shakes his head. "I've got it." And then a sharp pulse hits him, sharp enough that his grip tightens against the counter. "All right, that's enough." As she reaches for him, she motions for him to sit again. Reluctantly, he lowers himself onto the edge of the toilet. She kneels in front of him. "What helps?" she says. "Pressure," he says. She nods and places her hand carefully around his ankle. Watching his face as he presses, he exhales slowly. "No, not there," he says quietly. A little to the left side." She adjusts. Lower. She follows. Not too hard. She softens her touch. The tension in his shoulders began to ease, just slightly, but enough. Neither of them speaks after that. She doesn't ask questions. He doesn't explain. She just stays there, steady, until the worst of it passes. Moments later, his breathing evens out. The tightness leaves his jaw. "It's fine," he says again, softer this time. She nods, even though they both knew that that wasn't the truth. She helps him up without making it a moment. He steps away, distance restored. "Get some sleep," he says, as he walks back to the living room couch. She does, but the thought lingered with her as she tried to sleep. Morning comes quietly. Lea wakes to the sun slipping through the blinds. For the moment, she forgets where she was. Then she sits up. The apartment is still, too still. She looked toward the hallway. The bathroom door is open. The living room was empty. As she stepped out, the kitchen was clean. The cups from last night were gone. Byun was already gone as well. No note, no sound, just a faint trace of him still lingering in her space, in her mind. She stands there for a moment, something unsettled in her chest. Not fear, not confusion, just wonder. Then she exhaled, pulled her arms around herself, and moves quietly through the apartment, careful not to disturb anything. What the hell was that? She wondered to herself.
Days pass, then weeks. Before either of them noticed, it had been 2 months. What started out as fear became routine. Lea no longer hesitated at his door. She moved through his apartment quietly, carefully, learning the rhythm of his space without even being told. During the day, she returned to her own place to change, to shower, to run on her treadmill. But only when she knew Byun was home. It had become easy, a quiet arrangement that neither of them questioned. At night she stayed, always. At first, the changes were small, easy to ignore. Byun didn't have a television, no music, no background noise. The apartment stayed still, controlled, in a way she couldn't quite explain. One night, she sat on the couch with her iPad, watching a show through her mini speaker. The glow lit her face, the rest of the apartment dim and quiet. Then the video stopped, buffering. She frowned. Then she checked the connection. No Wi-Fi. "That's weird," she muttered to herself, switching to her hotspot. The show resumed. Then, bang! She flinched. She pulled the blanket back, standing at guard, listening. But she only heard silence. Then she stepped into the hallway. Byun sat on the couch, still looking toward the door, watching it. "Is everything okay?" she asked. He nodded once. "Yeah." Nothing else. She hesitated, then went back inside. A few seconds later, bang! Louder. She froze, staring at the door. The sound didn't come from outside. It came from him. She didn't go back out again. She just waited until the next morning. The next morning, she stepped into the kitchen and stopped. Her things, the small things she had left out the night before, her charger, her lip balm, a folded sweater, they were all gone. For a second, her stomach dropped. Then she saw them, placed neatly into her gym bag, set by the door, every item folded, aligned, contained. She turned slowly. Byun stood at the stove, cooking like nothing happened. The smell of the something warm filled the apartment. He glanced over his shoulder. You're up." Yeah." Her eyes flicked back to her bag, then to him. He followed her gaze briefly. "Yeah, you left those out," he said. "I put them together so you wouldn't forget anything." His tone was calm, matter of fact. "Oh, thank you,"
she said. He turned back to the stove. "I'm going to get groceries later." He said it like everything was normal. And maybe, to him, it was. After that, she started to notice more. If she left something out, it didn't stay there. It disappeared, then reappeared, grouped, folded, placed near the door. If she sat somewhere, the moment she left, He wiped it down, not casually, thoroughly. The table, the counter, the back of the chair. Once, she watched him sanitize the exact spot where her hand had rested only minutes before. If something had moved, even slightly, it didn't stay that way. He would pass by, pause, and then adjust it. A cup turned a fraction to the left. A chair nudged back into alignment. A book straightened until its edge matched the table perfectly. Nothing in the apartment was random. Everything pointed in the same direction. Everything had a place, and everything returned to it. At first, she told herself it was just neatness. Then she started to pay attention. Really pay attention. The cushions on the couch were always centered, the table legs lined up with the floor seams, the items on the counter spaced evenly, like they had been measured. Even the shoes by the door were angled the same way, toed to the wall, perfectly parallel. It wasn't just clean, it was controlled. One evening, she tested it. She didn't mean to at first. She just didn't fix something. A chair. She pulled it out farther than usual. Left it slightly turned, not aligned with the table. Then she went to bed. The next morning she awoke, the sunlight filtering through the blinds. For a moment everything felt normal. Then she stepped into the living room and stopped. The chair was back in place, perfect, exactly where it belonged. Her stomach tightened slightly. Then she looked toward the door, and her breath caught. All of her things were there. Not just a few items. Everything. Her clothes, her bag, her charger, her shoes, all packed neatly in several bags, lined up by the door, organized, contained, like she had already decided that she was leaving. The apartment was silent, too silent. She looked around, and Byun Woo was gone. Her eyes dropped to the table. A small piece of paper sat there. She walked over slowly and picked it up. "Text me what you want for dinner tonight." She stared at the note. Her chest tightened. Something unsettled rising beneath it. Not fear, not anger. Something harder to name. She looked back at the door, at the bags, then down at the note again. He packed her things, like she didn't belong there, but still asked what she wanted for dinner. Lea stood there in the quiet apartment, holding the paper in her hand, trying to understand which one he meant. That night, it finally broke. It wasn't one thing. It was all of it. The chair, the counter, the way nothing ever stayed where she left it. Lea stood in the kitchen holding a cup that she had just washed. She set it down, not carefully, not aligned, just down. Byun Woo noticed immediately. He crossed the room and adjusted it. A small, precise movement. Lea watched him. Do you always do that?" she asked. He didn't look at her. "Do what?" "That," she gestured. "Fix everything I touch." He straightened the cup again, even though it was already straight. "You left it out of place." Lea let out a small breath. "It's a cup. It's not where it belongs." The words landed sharper than he intended. She stared at him. "Byun Woo, I live here too." He finally looked at her, and something in his expression tightened. "You're staying here. That's different." The room went still. Lea blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means this is my space." His voice wasn't loud yet, but it was firm, controlled, too controlled. "And so, does that mean I need to walk on eggshells in it?" she asked. "You just have to respect it." "I do respect it," she said. "Then stop moving my things." "I'm not moving things," she said, frustration rising. "I'm just living." "That's the problem," he snapped. The words hit harder than he expected, but he didn't stop. "You don't pay attention. You leave things out. You make noise." She stepped back. "Make noise?" she repeated. "So that's what that was? The banging?" He didn't answer. Her eyes widened slightly. "You turned off the Wi-Fi too?" Silence. That was the answer. It was answer enough. Lea shook her head slowly. Are you serious right now? I just needed to be quiet, he said. So, instead of just saying that, you just control everything around me until I figured it out? His jaw tightened. You weren't figuring it out. I didn't know that there was something to figure out, she shot back. The tension snapped. Because you don't pay attention, he yelled. The room went silent. The sound of his voice hung in the air. Too loud, too sharp. Lea stared at him. Not angry, not yelling. Just done. Okay, she said quietly. That's the worst. But you know what? I get it. She turned and walked toward the door. Lea. But she didn't stop. I'll just go back to my place. That should fix everything, right? He didn't answer. The door opened. Then it closed. And just like that, she was gone. Immediately after, the apartment felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Byun stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard, the echo of his own voice still ringing in his ears. He looked at the cup, perfectly aligned, everything exactly where it belonged. And it meant nothing. He sat down slowly, dragging his hand over his face. What did I just do? The thought pressed in heavy and unavoidable. Hours passed, maybe more. He hadn't moved. It was 1 a.m. in the morning when he heard it. A sound, faint, distant. A door, not his. He sat up and listened. Voices, low, unfamiliar. His chest tightened. Lea. He stood immediately and moved to the door, opened it just enough to listen. Footsteps, closer now. Then a soft click. Her door. Something inside of him dropped. Without even thinking, he ran down the hall, past her door, straight to the fire alarm and pulled it. The building erupted. Sirens screaming through the halls, lights flashing, doors opening, voices rising. Byun turned and slammed his fist against Leah's door. Lea, open the door. We have to evacuate. No answer. He hit it again, harder. Lea! Inside, he heard movement. The landlord finally arrived to the floor to see who had pulled the alarm in the building. Byun ran down the hall to the older man and told him that he had saw that she had a break-in and needed help. The landlord instantly went from annoyed to shocked. He moved quickly, fumbling with his keys. When he finally got the door open to the apartment, it was empty. Too empty. The window was open, the curtain was shifting, the fire escape rattling outside. Gone. They were all gone. Byun's chest tightened. Lea? He called. Nothing. Then a sound, soft, from the bedroom. They moved quickly. The landlord pushed the door open. The room was still. Byun dropped his gaze to the bed and knelt beside it, looking underneath. And there, she was there, curled into herself, eyes wide, frozen. Lea, he called gently. She didn't move. He lowered himself to the floor and slid closer, pushing himself halfway under the bed with her. The space was tight and dark. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I shouldn't have yelled at you like that. Her breath shook. They were here, she whispered. They were here. I know, he said, softly. They're gone now. She shook her head slightly, still trapped in it. His hand hovered over hers now. Then, slowly, he took it. I'm sorry, he said again. A long pause. Come back with me. Her fingers tightened slightly around his. Not fully, not yet, but enough. He leads her back down the hallway, his hand steady in hers, guiding her without rushing. The alarm still echoes faintly through the building, doors opening and closing, voices spilling into the corridor. But it all feels distant now, inside his apartment, as the door closes, and the noise dulls to a low, manageable hum. The space returns to what it was, controlled, contained, quiet. Lea doesn't say anything. She just lets him guide her. He brings her back to his bedroom, the same room he had wanted to keep sacred so badly, the same space he had tried to protect from disruption. Now he lets her in without hesitation. "Sit," he says. She does. He pulls back the covers, slower this time, more careful than he's ever been with anything in his room. She slides in, still shaken, still carrying the fear in her body. He adjusts the blanket over her shoulders, then the sheet, smoothing it down with quiet precision. Not out of habit this time, but something else, something gentler. "Try to sleep," he says. Her eyes were already closing. The adrenaline was leaving her body. The exhaustion was taking over. He sat on the edge of the bed for a moment. And for a while, neither of them speaks. Then, quietly, almost without deciding to, he slides himself back on the bed and lays down beside her. Then, he starts talking. "I used to line everything up when I was a kid," he says. His voice is low and steady, more like he was speaking to the air than to her. He continues. "My mother thought it was a phase. She said I'd grow out of it. But I didn't. If something was out of place, I couldn't focus, couldn't think. It felt like something was wrong in my body, like everything was off, until I fixed it." His eyes dropped to his hands. "I didn't know how to explain it, so I didn't. My father didn't like it at all. Said it made me difficult. Said I needed to learn how to live like everyone else. I tried, but I couldn't." He glances at her. She's still listening. So he kept going. "I learned how to hide it. Made it smaller. Controlled it where I could. But it doesn't go away. It just waits." He stops. The words settle. He looks over at her, and she's asleep. Her breathing is slow and even now. The tension has gone from her face. He didn't even notice when it happened. His gaze lingered. He studies her in the quiet, the shape of her eyes, softened now, the tension gone from the corners, her lashes resting lightly against her skin, her nose, small and balanced, the kind of detail you don't notice until you're this close, this still. Her lips, full, slightly parted as she breathes, holding a softness he hasn't seen while she was ever awake. His eyes move lower. The blanket rises gently with her breath, tracing the outline of her body. Subtle, not exposed, just enough to suggest her shape. Her shoulders relax into the mattress, the curve of her wrists beneath the sheet, the quiet lift and fall of her chest. It's not something he stares at often, not like this, not without tension attached to it. There's no demand here, no expectation, just presence. His chest tightens. A thought slips in, quiet, uninvited. What would it feel like to be this close? To be closer? Not in a way that disrupts her, not in a way that takes, just to exist in the same space without distance between them. To feel the warmth of another person without having to think about where everything belongs. To be held without having to control it. The thoughts settle deeper than he expects. He looks down, her hands in his. At some point, she reached for him. He didn't even feel it. Her fingers are curled lightly around his, cupping his hand, as if it belonged there. No hesitation, no adjustments, no precision, just natural. He watches her, the way her hand rests against his, the contrast of it, how easily she does something he has spent years trying to regulate, control, minimize. Something in his chest opens, slow, unfamiliar. But it doesn't pull away. He doesn't correct it. He doesn't move her hand into a better position. For once, he leaves it exactly where it is. The thought of Minha's absence flickered in the back of his mind just then. Then it faded. This was different. He can feel it. He doesn't try to name it. He just holds it carefully.
Byun and Lea are finally getting close. Byun was finally getting the closeness that he always wanted. And then, in the next episode, Lea stood and excused herself to go to the bathroom. And for the first time in a long time, Byun smiled. And then he heard it. The voice cut through the air instantly. Familiar. Too familiar. He looked up. Minha stood there.